Welcome to the Young Granny Show. I'm your host, Brittany. We're skipping the midlife crisis and diving straight into the cozy world of all things Young Granny. I will highlight artists and creators who share their passion for slow living, creativity, and the art of a handmade life. So grab your yarn, a cup of tea, and let's get started. Welcome, Misha, to the Young Granny Show. I am so thrilled to have you on today. You are our first herbalist that we're having, and I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. As an herbalist, I'm sure we're going to learn a lot today from you. And let's get to know what's in your comfort cup today.
My peace mama tea. It's passion flower, tulsi, lemon balm, lavender, and butterfly pea flower.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, all of those things are super calming to your nervous system. What made you choose that today, that blend?
No, because anxious having my voice recorded and my face recorded and yeah, yeah, needed you were like comfort cup and I'm like, absolutely, all the comforting herbs I can find.
Yes,
I could probably have thrown a few more in here, but I
I
make
bet. Yeah,
and keep it in stock. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, tell us how you got started or interested in herbs and where you took it.
so, when I was young, my best friend's parents owned a Nature Sunshine herb store. And then as we get a little older, she owned and ran a store. And they were always encouraging me to, try different things and use different things. I struggled with endometriosis and polycystic ovaries and just really had a hard time. So that was my first introduction. And you know how it is. We as women, and then especially as moms, don't really tend to take care of ourselves. It really wasn't until my daughter Raven was born, and the first 4 years of her life, she was just seriously sick all the time. She was just a very miserable baby girl. And I have my beliefs on how she ended up that way. And I searched out every natural thing I could to heal my child because the doctors weren't cutting it. I printed a 300-page doctor's record for my 4-year-old, and I was like, yeah, this something's got to give. And so I went to natural medicine and changed everything. We changed diet completely. We made kefir water on our counter. We started making our bone broth. Um, Started off using like a lot of essential oils and things, which I now don't actually recommend essential oils unless you're like using it for cleaning or something. I don't. I think that it's too concentrated. Like when you make essential oils, you lose part of the plant, and you actually, I mean, they're volatile compounds. You're making a chemical, and it's really strong. It's too strong for our systems. But anyway, started off there. Ended up, elderberry syrup, and just slowly adding things in. I started making like, sage tea for sore throats, and then uh, just the deeper you go, you just start expanding on that. And I started making salves and tinctures and teas, and um, eventually got to this empty shop and had this table. Actually, the table I'm sitting at right now, which is a tiny 4-person table, was like stacked and covered with jars. And I was like, I'm going to move all this out to this shop. And my friend made me these curtains, and then another friend like brought me a bunch of these big jars. And I was standing in here in my shop, and I'd already been selling like elderberry syrup and a few teas and just a few things, but it wasn't my full-time job. It was kind of a side thing. And
Yeah.
anyway, this shop got cleaned out and it was perfectly empty and had all these shelves and these new jars and a space to do this. And my friend stood in here with me and she's like, you could do this like full time for people. And I was like, maybe I could do that. And yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years full time.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. I find it so interesting, um, your story that, you struggled a lot and that it was your daughter who really kickstarted this off for you because I find so many people, so many moms, women specifically, um, not even just moms, but women, that is their story in how they got started in any one of these granny hobbies that we're talking about, but especially with things like herbalism and natural medicine and or gardening is this this for me it was when I was struggling with infertility.
yeah,
Something wasn't working and the doctors could never, it was unexplained. Everything always looked perfect, like ideal, absolutely ideal. And they couldn't figure out what was happening. Um, you know, my husband was tested, everything was just perfect and couldn't figure it out. So that started my journey, right? And how to become a mom. Other people, it seems like when they become a mom and it's
yeah.
their children that are struggling.
It's
Um,
all about our families.
so
It's all about, that's the heart of who we are. And we want
yeah,
to, even if we're not mothers as women, I think we're all nurturers in some way. I mean, I have a
yeah,
lot of really close friends who are not mothers, but they serve as aunts and, they
yeah,
have their pets and whatever it is, it's that we're nurturers and we
yep,
need to make those that we love and that we nurture as healthy and happy as possible, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And how I tend to view women, and it's a long-standing joke between my husband and I and our dynamic. And the older I've gotten, the more life I've experienced and observed through conversations like what we're having today. It also applies in all these situations, but I've always said that I'm the dirt, I'm the soil, um, and my husband or now my child is my flower. And as I'm a homemaker, right? I'm a stay-at-home mom. Um, my job is to be nourished in myself so that I can provide this grounding stabilization for everybody to thrive. And I can't thrive and they can't thrive if I'm not nourished, um, and fertilized, if you will. Um, but, it also extends to my friends and people that I meet through this podcast and stuff. So that's how I view women is we're this grounding force. Um, and we need to replenish ourselves, but we allow, our grounding nature, our nurturing nature allows for everything to thrive. Um,
That's beautiful.
so yeah, yeah. Which I laugh about it because uh, I came up with that when my husband and I first started dating 15 years ago. We were in our early 20s, um, and just how much life has happened and how that just becomes more true, right?
Yes.
I laugh. Yeah, it's pretty funny to me. So I know in the past you've focused on herbalism now, but you've dabbled in other things in the past. You've mentioned to me you've done knitting and crocheting, and what are some common threads behind maybe finding those interests or um,
I
bless you,
always
Betty.
say I was the wrong century. I think I would have been happy like in Little House on the Prairie, you know? Like I
Yeah.
much prefer that quiet, simple making and creating and using everything you have, using my hands, keeping my hands busy. But over the years, my daughters and I went to something called Women's Wilderness Workshops, and it was a friend of mine. She actually runs Fun Frolic Farm in Stilo, North Carolina, and she makes goat milk soaps and lotions and all kinds of stuff. But for years we would go, and it was learning to make cordage, learning weaving, learning fire by friction, learning eco printing, doing plant walks and plant identification. And I would say, like, I met my uh, herbalist mentor and foraging mentor, plant identification mentor. She's kind of all of those things there. Abby Artemisia, and she's amazing. But um, I mean, my kids, like, Piper was like 6 the first time she learned how to tan a rabbit. I mean, like, we
That's
learned all
awesome.
sorts of things. So I think all of those things, all of those skills are the foundation of, like, survival, but they're also, like, now um, feeling like you can create anything, and learning
Yeah.
how to use what's around you and then care for what's around you and do it sustainably. And I was a single mom for a long time and didn't, there was some kind of internal comfort in knowing that, like, if we didn't have enough food, we could absolutely go outside and we could make salad and we could make it taste good. And
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
girls have done it many times, especially in the spring. They'll
Yeah.
be like, it's hilarious. When they were really little, they would go out and gather wood sorrel, which they call lemon leaves, and white clover blossoms and eat them together. And that was lemon candy because the clover blossoms are
Oh my
sweet and
gosh.
the wood sorrel is like lemon sour. So yeah, it was like eating a sour lemon candy. But I don't know. Like, I think all of these things are just really connected to each other in general. They're all skills that can provide you with what you need. Whether it be food or medicine or clothing or blankets or fire for warmth or, knowing what trees can bend and make you a basket or a fence or, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you have you ever felt that um, getting all this information, all this knowledge has been overwhelming? I know for
Yes.
me, um, I have this drive to like gather all these skills, learn all this knowledge, and have a deep, intimate relationship with this knowledge so that I could use it if ever if everything fell apart. But it's so overwhelming. There's so much to learn, there's so much to do. And there's a lot of contradictory information out there now too, which just adds to the overwhelm. Um, and on top of that, you have your driving reason of, I'm trying to um, make sure, these health issues are no longer an issue and all these things. Have you ever felt that overwhelm?
Oh gosh, yes, especially on this the journey to giving my kids a healthier everything, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
start, well, everything that's plastic needs to go. Well, this isn't healthy. Well, that's not healthy. Well, this is supposed to be organic, but it's not really organic. And well, we should eat like this or we should eat like that. And
Yeah.
you need this and you need that. And oh, don't eat salt. Oh no, wait, you need Celtic salt. Oh, I mean, there's just, and then on top of that, then like you said, all those skills. I mean, I haven't touched a needle, except I do still sometimes embroider. Um, but I think that's it. Like, I don't, and that's so rare, and it's probably been a year since I did. unless I'm fixing something for somebody, one of the children. Because all I have
Yeah.
time to do is my work here. I had to, and I do feel like I've always felt that call to be a healer. Like when I was young, I wanted to be a nurse. Like I know this is what I'm meant to be doing, but it doesn't mean I don't love the rest of those skills and hobbies
Yeah.
and things I learned. I just don't have the time because the world we live in
Yeah.
is not the 1800s like I wish it was.
Yeah.
I have to pay bills. My
Yeah.
kids want to go here, there, and everywhere and do all the things. And, it's just not, it, we're trying to incorporate simple life ideals into a very busy, very demanding society. And it's kind of overwhelming, like hugely
Yeah.
overwhelming. And like I mentioned, like about the essential oils, like, you
Yes.
know, I thought I was doing something great. And now I'm like, ooh, that was probably too much. I mean, but
Yeah.
we live and we learn and we do a little at a time. And I don't beat myself up anymore. My kids are now teenagers and not all of them, but the girls are teenagers and they eat what they want and they drink what
Yeah.
they want. And
Yeah.
they make their own decisions now in a lot of ways. And I just hope that what I put into them when they were young is enough, and that they'll go back to some of those things when they're older, and that they'll have the knowledge to make the best decisions for themselves that they can, and that maybe society will allow them to, you know, live a little differently and a little more simply.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So let's revisit the essential oils. So I'm sure a lot of listeners, if they are familiar with essential oils, this is probably going to be very new for them.
Yeah,
Um, I know it feels like this kind of underground thought that's happening that will quickly bubble up to the surface, I'm sure, because essential oils, there was this big push with these companies that became really popular, like Young Living and doTERRA and those companies. And everybody jumped on this super strong essential oil diffuse everywhere and drink them and, do all the things with essential
yeah,
oils. Switch from, your what, like Mr. Pine or whatever, Pine Sol to, you know,
yeah,
use it as a cleaner and do all the things with essential oils. So, um, it has served its purpose, I think, for a lot of people to switch from um, everything super chemically to maybe find a little bit more balance and bring some nature into their lives, which was needed,
yes,
very much needed, and helped this revival of let's connect back to nature and find out what nature can do again. um, but now people are starting to reel it back in and have different experiences with it. So tell us, how did you come to understand that essential oils are very strong and perhaps a little bit too strong for our systems?
yeah. So I always had like I was never okay with ingesting. I always thought that that was just not okay. But I mean, even putting a few drops in a carrier oil and using the roller balls on my kids' skin when they were little, like that was probably too much. Because what you get in an essential oil is thousands of plants. Like, say we're talking about lavender, right? I have fresh lavender in my cup right now, and I can smell it, and it's really strong. And there's probably, I don't know, in this little tea bag, who knows? Maybe there's 20 little buds in there, right? But in a bottle of essential oil, you're talking about thousands of those, all consolidated down to make the strongest, component you can. And you're missing all of the other things in the plant, right? Like the plant isn't just that one thing that you can smell. It's, I don't know how to say this. It's kind of the same as like soil, right? soil is minerals and nutrients, and there's metals, and like there's just all these different things, and you need all of that for the plant to grow. Well, same thing when you're using plants as medicine. You need the whole plant. You don't need it to be pushed down until it's consolidated into this like one single chemical. And again, I don't think they're the worst thing in the world. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, they have done wonderful things. I think it's absolutely was one of the first things I started with, and I think it helped in lots of ways. Um, I just think that, like with everything, we take things too far. You know what I mean? And then we have to
Yeah.
like back up and we have to pay attention to the new research. And I mean, I'm shredding pine needles right now off of branches because a dear friend of mine has an issue with really, really high platelets. And there are medical studies, multiple medical studies, showing benefits of pine needle powder on lowering and regulating platelets, right? And that's what I do with my free time now is read medical studies. And I mean, I also have hundreds of books and read different articles online and have other herbalists that I follow that are big and small. And I think we're, like we talked about earlier, being overwhelmed with information is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing in that
Yeah.
the more we know, the more we learn, the better we can do. And so that's what
Yeah.
it is for me with essential oils. Is it's like, oh, well, they're great. I still use some in like my water and vinegar to clean my floors. I don't think that's a terrible thing, but I don't do roller balls on my skin because I think that's too much. I don't know. That's just me, though.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to make their own
Yeah.
decisions, and that's the same thing I tell people, like when they ask what should they take or whatever it may be. And I'm like, well, this is what I would do for mine, but you have to make your own decision. This is you using plant medicine for yourself. It's not, I'm
Yeah.
not your doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you to take anything. I'm telling you this is what I would do, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and, I mean, yeah, some of that is we have to keep ourselves safe in this world that we live in. But honestly, it's the truth. And we're treating the whole person when we think about ourselves and when we talk to like an herbalist, like when they come in here to meet with me and have a consult, I usually start the conversation off by saying, "Tell me about yourself." And they're always like,
Yeah.
uh I'm like, no, seriously, tell me about you. I want to know about
Yeah.
your stress. I want to know about your diet. I want to know about your family. I want to know what you enjoy, what you hate, how do you feel, how do you sleep, what are your bowel movements like? Like, I want to know all about you so that you and I can work together to try and figure out what's best for you. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I probably went off on too many tangents.
No, it's so good. It's so good. Um, as an herbalist, I mean, it's really important to know, well, as a e- doctors as well and herbalists, it's really anybody who's addressing something happening. It's really important to know holistically what's happening in the body because our systems are so intertwined that something that seems benign or um, totally not connected to what your issue is really could be a key factor in understanding what's happening. Um, so it is really important, to know. And as an herbalist, as an effective herbalist, I'm sure you're empathetic by nature and you're able to feel the energetics of what that person is telling you. And my guess is that you're empathetic because I can also tell that you feel the energetics of the plant or plants. Um, and you can match those frequencies, if you will.
A lot
and
of times,
tell a little bit about what's needed. Yeah.
people come in and I'm like, I'm torn between like this or this. But I'm feeling like maybe this for you. And sometimes I just set out the things I'm feeling and thinking and have them like smell them, um, and see like, does
Yeah.
something appeal to you? Does this feel right for you? Um, because even if it's what I'm feeling for them, um, and that's not just a feeling. I mean, a lot of it is, but a lot of it is a lot of studying and a lot of research and a lot of time spent learning about the different properties of the plant. Of course, that's just like you were saying earlier with being overwhelmed. I mean, there's over 100 herbs on my shelves, and I have
Yeah.
5 kids at home, and I have 8 stores that carry my products now. So there are some days where
Amazing.
like
Yeah.
you would ask me what's in my Peace Mama cup, and I might not remember in that moment. I might
Yeah.
be like, oh, hold on, wait, let me think about that, because
Yeah. Yeah.
I take my rosemary tincture every day. Brain fog is real. But but so yeah, I might be thinking, one thing for them and but I'm torn with like 2 or 3 and they're going to pick the right one because I trust them to you know feel it out for themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
Those energetics are real and sometimes it's I don't know, some days I'm just like, "Oh, I know what I need today," or I'm on a walk and I'm like, oh, that's what I should make tea out of today, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think they, you know, the more connected you are to all the plants and the earth, and I think the more you can kind of feel like you're communicating with them. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people that are new to herbalism or newish, that want to start making their own teas or whatnot, what's some advice that you would give folks that are interested in starting this path?
Um, Connect with someone nearby, someone that's close to you that maybe has a little more knowledge or at least is interested in doing the same thing. It helps to have other people that you can work in community. Um, and then learning just the plants off your back porch. Like knowing that when you walk out the door, there's plantain over there. So if your kid gets stung by a bee, you can, throw some plantain on it. Knowing that dandelion is going to be, good for like liver. Um, Trying to think what things are right outside my back door right now.
Yeah.
Knowing that your strawberry leaves are edible and that you can make salad with your strawberry leaves. Your violet leaves are a lymphatic and they're really great at moving like clogged ducts. And honestly, violet oil is really great for like preteen girls when their breast buds are developing.
Yeah.
Put that oil on there. It's really soothing.
Huh.
What else is right out the back door? Um, Clover is obviously edible. Honeysuckle is edible. I'm trying to think about medicinals. Red clover is great for hormonal issues, like helping balance hormones. Um, so yeah, like connecting with those plants that literally we think of as weeds. Lyre leaf sage. Lyre leaf sage is all over my yard. Goldenrod is all over my yard. Both are really great for allergies. Um,
Mm.
Everybody thinks of goldenrod as something that causes allergies, but that's actually ragweed, and they're mixing up the two. And goldenrod actually is a natural antihistamine. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so like those things that you can just walk right outside and find wherever you are, identify the plants in your own yard, and like you probably have something to help with most everything in your own yard. It may not be the strongest one. It may not be, the most popular one, but it's a it's a really simple, connected way to start. And you don't have to spend any money. You just go learn what's right there and utilize what's right
Yeah.
there. And it's very sustainable. And it reminds us that it, weeds aren't actually weeds. Most of the most potent plants there are what we call weeds. And I think there's probably a reason for that, but we can't sell them when they grow everywhere. But
Right.
a whole nother
Yes.
can of worms.
Sure is. Yes. Um, I think that's really important, and it's something that I found fascinating. We live in Texas now.
Yeah,
Grew up in California. So a lot of my kind of very rudimentary plant knowledge comes from California. Moving to Texas, completely different soil, completely different natives and everything. But it coincided with the time that I was really starting to get interested in herbs myself, and um, realizing that most weeds and most things that are picked from lawns and killed, um, that they're the most special,
yeah,
if you will. That's how I've categorized them in my
yeah,
head. And so we live on an acre, and I had never had my own land before. We came from a townhouse, and we moved right before spring. So spring came, and all these things were growing in our yard. I was like, what are these things? And thank God for technology, using my iPhone and, on these plant apps, and being like, oh, that's plantain. Holy moly. And, this is, what is it? Prickly lettuce. Like, oh my gosh. And oh my gosh, we have a wild, passion flower
ugh,
patch from birds, just dropping their stuff, and seeing all this stuff. And it was really fun to discover like what is actually in my yard, and then, going for a hike up the road and seeing all these things growing and being able to recognize that. And then you start to get into this like foraging mindset. Like, how could I actually use that? And that is something that still holds me back personally. Is okay, so I've identified these things, I've researched them, I know benefits to them. The thing that holds me back is the actual foraging of them. And then what? Like when identifying when it would be best to harvest these things, and um, making sure I'm doing it with reverence to the land, not over picking it, and all that.
yeah,
So, for somebody who's in my shoes or starting their journey of identifying and wanting to use what's around them,
yeah.
um, what's some advice you would give to me and others?
So, I mean, I think being aware of that is the best part, I mean, I think just the fact that like, hey, I want to do this sustainably. I don't want to damage the plant. I don't want to, you know, go and over harvest and take more than I can use. That's going to keep you from doing that just because you feel that way. I would say again, that's why it's so great to start with what you have. Like if you have a passion flower patch in your yard, like all of the above ground parts of passion flower are usable. But obviously, if you have tons, you don't need to harvest it all. You can harvest
Yeah.
half the flowers and half the leaves and dry those, and it may be for you enough to last you 2 years in making tea. Maybe it's enough for tea and tinctures. I don't know how big your patch is. Um, but I mean, like I have a new patch of mugwort. Started last year, and this year it's back. And I'm like, it's still really small. I'm probably not going to harvest that yet. But I have enough
Yeah.
violet leaves and violets that I could harvest all day, every day for the rest of summer.
Yeah.
And I don't worry about it, which is great
Yeah.
because when you dry violet leaves and crumble them, you start off with like this basketful and you end up with like a handful. So that's a really good thing that I have plenty.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just start. Just make your first cup of tea and see how it goes. When the girls were little, that was part of it, was the joy with them. We would gather the violet flowers and we would make our tea, and violet flowers turn the water blue. And if you squeeze a little lemon, the water turns fuchsia. And they were just so excited. And so the next thing you know, they were out there harvesting with me and like, trying all the different things. And I'd realize, oh, well, we actually use a lot of, like, I don't know, the goldenrod. We use a lot of goldenrod tea in allergy season. So we would harvest a good bit of that.
Yeah.
But I don't go harvesting more until my jar gets low. And, I,
Yeah.
but just don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to start. Have fun with it. I mean, and I still have to look things up too. I still look in my books. I still Google things. I couldn't remember the other day, like, when does my mint flower? Because
Yeah.
somebody mowed down my mint patch. And so it's been a couple of years since I've harvested my mint. And I was like, ooh, I think
Yeah.
there's mint that I can harvest that this year. I'm like, when does it flower? Because you want to harvest it before it goes to seed. So
Yeah.
I look it up, because nobody can remember all those things. You just can't. Um,
Yeah.
just don't be afraid. I mean, even if it's just going out and gathering a handful of violets and making you and your kids some violet tea to watch it turn pink, just start somewhere.
Yeah.
If you get into it and you really love it, then you slowly start remembering all the
Yeah.
things. The more you do it, the more you
Yeah.
get there, the more you remember. But who cares if you look it up for every plant every time?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay. I I have a book. Actually, Abby Artemisia, my mentor. I think it's herbalism for homesteaders. I can't see. Do you mind if I grab it?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great one. Herbal Handbook for Homesteaders, Farmed and Foraged Herbal Remedies and Recipes, Abby Artemisia. Um, you know, you talked about what to do after. Making tea is
Yeah.
easy. Tea is, hot water, and you can add honey or lemon or milk or whatever you want. Um, Tinctures, everybody kind of panics because, it seems complicated, but really it's not. It's like fill your jar with some fresh herbs, cover it with alcohol, put some parchment paper on a lid, and put a date on it. Put it in the
Okay.
cool, dark corner of your pantry and shake it every day, or let's be honest, every time you think about it, because you might shake it 10 times
Yeah.
one day and then not for 10 days. But I mean, I like to let my tinctures sit for like 8 weeks. Anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks is. But then if they're personal use tinctures in the house, sometimes I don't even strain them. Sometimes I just let that plant
Yeah.
stay in there as long as it's covered in alcohol. It's not going bad. It's just getting more and more potent. At some point, it's probably not taking anything else out of the plant, but it's not hurting anything. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like garlic, fermented honey. Like, the longer you leave it on the counter and the blacker and thinner it gets, the more potent that stuff is. But
Yeah.
it's really simple. We just overcomplicate it.
Yeah. I know. I think that's well, that's probably a good description of how I live my life is things are much more simple than I make them out to be in my head. But um let's see. So tea, if you're making your own tea from maybe things that you've harvested, what
Yeah.
would be the difference between using dried or dehydrated parts of the plant versus fresh? Is there
Um,
benefit to either one?
if you have available to use fresh, fresh is pretty much always best, unless you're making an oil and then you have to dehydrate because you can't get the water in the oil.
Okay.
But you don't have to use as much either of a fresh plant as you do dried sometimes. But I mean, I have found that my dried stuff is just as effective. Like, I've made this peace mama using fresh herbs before, and it doesn't seem to make a difference to me as to how well it calms me or soothes my anxiety, whether it's fresh or dried. But as far
Okay.
as scientifically, fresh is always better, you
Yeah.
know.
I hadn't in my head I had that flopped. Um
Hmm,
I'm not quite sure why,
I don't know.
but I maybe it's just because we've always, what's tea is you always have your bag or your dried herbs. So
Yeah,
maybe that's why. It was just
yeah.
that's what was always available.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
interesting.
making tinctures fresh is definitely best for tinctures. You're gonna get
Yeah.
more out of the plant than you do dried. But I make a lot of tinctures with dried herbs, all the time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot possibly carry, I can't possibly grow and forage all of these herbs, and a bunch of them don't grow here, or anyway. So
Yeah.
they can be made with both, and it's
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with tinctures, if you
Mhm.
are purchasing a tincture that somebody else has made or you've made your own, what are what are ways that you like to use them?
Um, so I take my tinctures under my tongue. Um, my This is mimosa blossom. We call it the happy tree. It's really great for like seasonal affective disorder or like winter blues. But it's
Yeah.
also really good for like mild depression, mood swings, that kind of thing. But so my bottles, when you squeeze one time, that's about a 10 drop dose. It's about half the dropper. And I take that once
Okay.
a day with my mimosa blossom if I'm going to take that one. Um,
Yeah.
my kids take tinctures in their elderberry syrup. So,
Okay.
like, if everybody gets
Yeah.
sick, then I'm going to start dosing everybody with elderberry syrup throughout the day. And if like it's a lung ailment, I'm probably throwing some echinacea and some mullein in there. Um, I like usnea. Usnea is fungus. It's a lichen that is like a natural antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral. It's really great at helping fight flu and viruses, but also like is good for strep throat. I've cured strep throat for my girls before just using that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will take and put, I'm like, oh, well, I think you need this much of this and this much of this and this much of this, and I'm gonna put that in your
Yeah.
elderberry syrup, and you don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
It gets into your bloodstream faster if you put it under your tongue. So like if you're like I make a tincture called Be Chill for anxiety. It's kind of like Peace Mama, but in a tincture, and you need to be chilled out in the next 10 minutes. You won't put that under your tongue.
Sure.
It's going to happen a lot
Yeah.
quicker than if you drink it. But you're still going to get the benefits. It's going to happen faster.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So when you make your tinctures,
mhm.
most of the time it's made using an alcohol base like a vodka or something. Is there an alternative if you are super sensitive or you stay away from alcohol or you just hate it? Like I hate the burning. I'll do it, but I hate it. It's torture. And there's, my son, he's super, even in like a juice or something, he'll be like, oh. So, is there an alternative that we could use instead of alcohol based to make tinctures?
Yeah, you can use glycerin based. It's technically still an alcohol, but it tastes sweet. Um, I
Sure.
don't,
Okay.
our bodies don't process it as well. Um,
Mm,
but you can for sure. And I mean, I would think that
sure.
that would be a better option than not doing it. So if you
Yeah.
can't get kids or someone to take alcohol-based tinctures or drink tea, then, glycerin-based tincture is a good alternative.
Yeah. Let's move to salves.
To what?
Um,
Oh, salves. Okay.
to yeah, salves.
I
Um,
couldn't hear. I think it was breaking up for a second.
it might have. um, so tell us, what's your process of making them?
So, one, I hate to make salves. I am kind of, I don't know, I get almost perfectionist about things sometimes, like wasting things. And salves are really
Sure.
difficult not to like get everywhere. I've not found a way to like get it all out of the pan, get it all, not spill it, not, I don't know. They drive me nuts. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just because that's my personality. Um, I start off by making my oils, so dried plant material. Like actually, I ran out of my oil the other day. I dried a bunch of plantain. I, crumbled it, got it in the jar, got it ready for oil, and I was like, oh, I don't have any oil. But so you start with your dry plant material, you cover it with oil, you shake it every day. All my oils are right here in the front, so I see them, so I shake them every day. There are other ways you can do, low heat, and have an oil ready in a day or two. You can also been studying about a process where you actually do alcohol and oil together to kind of make the oil more stable. But I can't talk about that yet because I don't know enough. But so you make your oils. I leave them for about 4 weeks, shaking them every day, and then I strain them and I refrigerate them for future use because it stretches the life of the oil, and I make a lot. Um, so, and then I have a basic salve recipe, which is like a quarter cup of beeswax to a cup of oils. And so you can, double, triple, quadruple that recipe based on whatever you're making. And then you can take that cup of oils and like, so say I'm making a salve that has 3 different kinds of oils in it. I'm going to use that quarter cup of beeswax, and then I'm going to use a third of each of those 3 oils. Or like my anti-inflammatory salve has 8 different oils in it. So I'm going to use an 8 cup of each of those 8, and a quarter cup of beeswax. And I warm it over super low heat, like a double boiler, and get it all blended really well, and then pour it into my jars. It's really not hard. It's
Nice.
messy.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like it. It's messy. But yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I love jewelweed salve. Jewelweed is like nature's answer to poison ivy and poison oak. And
Okay.
I've never gotten poison ivy really in my life. I've always been that person that could just walk through it and it was fine. Well, so I didn't put jewelweed on after I was working in the yard the other day, and I'm covered. And I
Oh no.
know. Yeah, my husband is severely allergic to it, and
Yeah.
he still got it, but he's like, this is the least amount, the weakest case, that I've ever had. So salves are
Yeah.
great and they work wonders.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
clients are always like, "Hey, when are you gonna make that? When are you gonna make that oil? When are you gonna make that?" I'm gonna have them
Yeah.
soon, I promise.
Yes.
We all have our strengths
Yeah.
and weaknesses. Just have to own them.
That's true. That's true. I think my favorite way that I've used them, where I find where I'm like, wow, this works so well, is when I'm sick with a respiratory issue. um, and using salves on my, on my chest, and on my feet, and for my son. Um,
Yeah,
those are always like my comforting favorite salves that I use, and um,
that's,
it's one of those moments. Every time I use it, I'm like, wow, this, it's like this does work really well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you as you're putting it on your son, you're like, oh yeah, me too, and you wipe what's left over on your son?
Yes. Yep, I do. I definitely do. And
Yeah.
speaking of using these things on children, their bodies are so new to this world, and it's fascinating to me to watch, like my son, he's 5, and I've used homeopathy and herbalism on him, his whole life, and to see how quickly his body responds and how effective these things are. I've very seldom used things like Tylenol and stuff, and um, so to see kind of this uh, unaltered,
Yeah.
body that is much, much more in tune with nature and its properties than my body is.
Right.
Um, it's fascinating to watch these things work in his body the way that they do. Um, I feel like I'm still trying to get my body there,
Yes.
back in tune with nature a bit, um, which I guess this is just occurring to me. Maybe you'll have some thoughts on this as well. Is I think our bodies have become so detached from nature, um, with, well, with all things, big rabbit hole things, that the potency of essential oils was really necessary
Well, that may be
to
true.
start.
That
So,
may be true.
yeah, like, yeah, to bring us to where we were, I guess, kind of the equal counterpart of
Yeah.
where our bodies were and the strong nature of the essential oils. But I did start noticing, like many people that have moved to Texas, or moved to Texas or grew up in Texas, Texas, there's a lot of allergies out here, and they are tough. And I have really had a difficult time, with my allergies, and you can probably hear it a little bit now. Ragweed started much earlier this year than it normally does. It started a few weeks ago when it normally starts in July here. Um, and I noticed, I was doing all these things that were supposed to be effective, and they weren't. And my body was just in such a state of overwhelm that more gentle things were not effective. So I needed something, to come in strong. So kind of paralleling like the essential oils. Maybe I need, there's a time in your life where you just need something so strong to
For sure. I think um
kick you out.
I think our bodies are fighting um so much, and so much of our
Yeah.
health begins in our gut and in our skin. And for people like me, we grew up slathering, Bed Bath, what is it? Bath and Body Works and Victoria's
Yeah.
Secret
Yeah.
lotions and sprays from head to
Yeah.
toe, and um,
Yes.
Nair instead of shaving, and
Yeah.
everything we ate came from a box or a can. Kool-Aid, yeah,
Yeah.
um, everything
Yeah.
was food dyes. Everything was, processed grains. And I think our systems are overloaded. I think that then we went from like living outside. I mean, and that probably saved us, honestly, like, because, yeah, we ate like crap, and yeah, we smothered ourselves in chemicals, but we were outside like all the time. We didn't come in
Yeah.
until it went dark. And I mean, that was for real. Like you could come in and eat lunch, you
Yeah.
could get a glass of water, but you were back outside, and like that was it.
Yeah.
And I think that exposure all of our lives to the allergens helped us when we were younger. Now they don't feel like we're outside as much, and I feel like that
Yeah.
with our guts and everything our bodies have been processing all along, it just is harder for us. I see most kids handling it better. Um, those kids, especially like the homeschool kids that are outside all day, every day, like they seem to really handle it so much better than like those of us
Mm.
who have to sit at a desk, and we get outside and we're like, oh my God, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
all of those things combined. I don't know. Sorry, I lost the train of
Yeah.
thought, but yeah, I
I know.
definitely think that um, there's reasons why we get to where we are, and maybe my body reacting to poison ivy like this for the time is, what's it telling me? That's my first thought is like,
Yeah.
what am I doing differently? Am I reacting to poison ivy now and I never did before?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm gonna have to dive into that and think about it and try and see what I can do because I like walking barefoot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's fast. All facets of this is fascinating. Your body will tell you so much. And something you said earlier, way earlier in our conversation, is, if you have a client and you're kind of torn between um, two things that could serve them, you'll have the client smell them, experience them in some way, because their body will tell them which one is more appropriate to them in that moment, which may change, after the first one serves them. But your body's always trying to communicate with you, and sometimes you need that big kick in the butt, really potent thing like a tincture, but sometimes you need something softer. And I do think that, going back to our conversation with the potency of essential oils, um, I do think that the people that have been in this world of natural plant medicine and stuff for, let's call it, a decade or more, um, we're kind of in this shift of, I did need that. It served me well. Now it's not. And what is that? And I think a lot of us are coming to this place of, now I need more gentle.
Yeah.
My body, got rid of or fixed or came into stasis with whatever the strongness of the thing that I needed was. Um, but now it's too strong. And I'm starting to hear that a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing homeopathy really take root, is people are being drawn to these more gentle
I
ways
think
of.
like everything else, I mean, it's a progression. They were really popular. They were really potent. They did do the job. And then, like I said earlier, the more you learn and the more you grow into something, the more you realize that thing has its place and its time. And I think I agree with what you said about it being a really great catalyst for us, especially when I think about of we went from smearing our bodies with Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret to
Yeah.
like smearing our bodies with essential oils, like we
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
smelling these really strong smells, and yeah, I think it's it's that progression. It's a little at a time. Oh wait, I kind of like to smell like me,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Like we
What
get
does
to
that
a point.
even smell like? Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I will like see someone and get a hug, and then I leave, and I'm like, oh, I can still smell the lotion
Yeah.
later, but I'm really sensitive to it now.
Yeah.
And even with
Yeah.
essential oils, I'm really sensitive to them now. You know, I can't, I can't imagine living in my house 15 years ago. You know, like I would,
Yeah.
I would have had a headache all the time. So, but
Yeah.
I really can't imagine being in my body, you know, 30 years ago and experiencing
Yeah.
self with Bath and Body Works. You know, I mean, I think
Yeah.
we we just grow. You know, there's so many different versions of who we are and how we get to those different stages and why and what our bodies needed or our emotions or who knows. You know, there's
Yeah.
every aspect of your life affects everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah. Which, that connects us right back to a lot of the catalyst for changing is things like infertility or having new responsibilities like becoming a mom or a partner. Um, that that'll shift things for you big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
big, there's big things, you know, I mean, like, my friends in North Carolina that are still recovering from the hurricane, you know, they're still
Yep.
dealing with the after effects of the, you know, cortisol overload, you know, and like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
desperate for like some adrenal, you know, support and some soothing of all of that. Um, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, small things too that we don't realize the impact. Maybe it's, you know, just a change in a job and you don't hate the job, but maybe it's short your core through the roof because you're having to learn all this and you internalize that you're not good enough. And so, you know, you're super
Yeah.
self-conscious and so your cortisol's just as high as theirs just because of your own internal makeup. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you never know.
I do. Yeah. 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 That's fascinating. Hadn't thought about that before
Yeah.
or put it in that context. Yeah. Um, as an herbalist, what are things that you grab for a lot when you're working with patients or clients? Like
Um,
clients.
it seems to me that people have a lot of the same needs. Um, I would say majority people reach for immune support. They want, you know, something to take other than over-the-counter medication, antibiotics. So I sell a lot of
Uh-huh.
elderberry syrup and fire ciders and immune booster teas, echinacea, usnea, these are tinctures. A lot of for like lungs and ears, rabbit tobacco for congestion. And I have a lot of people that are struggling with anxiety. I would say anxiety and stress is probably right up there with immune support. Um, and then people want to have more energy, which the adrenal support is really good for that, actually. And then sleeping also. Um, blood sugar, people want to lower their blood sugar. Heart health, worrying about blood pressure and cholesterol. Mm, I'd say those are my top requests
Yeah.
and conversations. Yeah. Um, I know. Yeah. Sex drive is another one. Testosterone issues, hormonal issues. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, those are probably the main things that people ask for help with.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times, you know, I do meet with clients locally. I do talk with clients via messages and emails and phone calls and texts and but a lot of my sales are done in stores. Um, And so every now and then, like, store owners will call me or message me, text me, and be like, "Hey, what about this or that or whatever?" But that's what I sell the most of, and it's still what I get contacted directly for the most. So it would be those things.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had a client with Parkinson's that has asked for help with sleep and tremors and brain function and trying to choose natural alternatives. And like we talked about with these pine needles that I can't stop messing with, she's got really, really high platelets. Find different avenues for that. So I get lots of
Yeah.
different, more extreme or unique questions, but it's the common things, the weight, uh, health, congestion, anxiety, sleep,
Yep.
sex. Like that's
Yeah.
what I'm most worried about. And I always
Yeah.
try and remind people, like, please be drinking your 64 ounces of water a day. Please make sure you're getting good quality Celtic salt. Water follows salt, kidneys healthy. Please take your probiotics. I send people to posymom.com for kefir grains all the time because I love kefir water.
Yeah.
I try and remind people that, like, everything in our bodies, our gut, and like, and our mind, just being grateful. And then, I always share encouraging, positive things on my stories on my page, trying to keep people remember to
Yeah.
be grateful and just stay positive. And because I, you how we think, and I know how we think affects us more than we can ever realize. If
Yeah.
you say we're sick, we're gonna be sick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, those are probably the main things.
Yeah.
Inflammation, pain, pain. That would be the other one.
Pain's a very broad.
It is. It's huge. I mean, pain can be,
Yeah.
I mean, I make my anti-inflammatory salve, and that's really helpful. And if you use it every day, it really is helpful.
Yeah.
I do a comfrey salve, an arnica salve. I inflammation tea, pain and inflammation tincture, a migraine relief tincture. Always trying to help people with pain. But again, you know, what we eat, how we move our bodies, what else we do with ourselves affects all of and
Yeah. Um, if somebody wanted to start growing some things to make their own teas and tinctures and salves,
yeah,
but they don't have a whole lot of space,
yeah,
um, maybe they have room for one little raised garden or, a tower garden or whatever, what are some suggestions from you that they could think about growing that would be beneficial
yeah.
to
Um,
making basic teas and all that?
it's interesting because, like, I think about this a lot. People ask me the like, what do you start with? What should I start with? I get overwhelmed, and I think the basics, like, go back to, like, a lot of your kitchen herbs, right? Like, oregano is a natural antimicrobial. Garlic is a powerful antiviral. Onion is great at, helping break fever and draw things out. Thyme is really great for colds. Sage is great for your sore throat. Um, I'm trying to these basic, culinaries are actually, that's probably why they're culinaries. Um, how we came to use them is because they were powerful. Um, I would say chamomile stomach upset. I would have yarrow on hand to stop bleeding, and um, it also helps with, like, heavy menstruation. If you can plant turmeric, turmeric is like, wow, turmeric is one of the most powerful things there is. So if you have room, do that.
Yeah.
Lemon balm's wonderful. Um, hey, what would I put here? Goldenrod is everywhere. You don't really have to plant it. Hmm, probably if I didn't have passion flower, I would plant passion flower. That might be my favorite garden.
Yeah.
I yeah, I really really love it's yeah. I love it. And nettles. Nettles. If you can plant nettles, nettles. That's your daily multivitamin. That's your um like the week I got married, like the girl that was helping me forage for all of my we used all foraged plants to do the centerpieces and decorate and everything. And she's like, "Hey, are you drinking your nettles?" And I was like, "Oh, thank you for taking care of me," because like I don't know, it's just they are so amazing at supporting your just whole person and keeping you healthy, especially when you're not paying attention. You know, you're not doing all the things
Yeah.
you should be doing. You're not eating as well because you're busy. Just drink your nettles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else like simple like that. That's kind of a lot. That's probably like 10 or so, right?
Yeah. That's
I
great. I
like
mean, you
that.
can fit a lot of those together. Some of them can
Yeah.
be, um, if your HOA allows, if you live in an HOA, some of them can be, landscaping.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Oh yeah. So that's another
um,
thing.
yeah.
I feel like we
Yeah.
should all take some of that garden paper and cover our lawns. And then we should plant things like violets, like red beam, like ground ivy, you know, clovers, things that are edible and flower and don't require you to mow them down. Um, so, and that you can use. Like, why are we not
Yeah.
doing this? Why are we still fighting with
Yeah.
plants? I don't understand.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Especially, just seeing what like grows in my yard in the back. It's fascinating to see. We've been in a drought for so long. We get ice storms and freezes over the winter, but then in the summer, oh my gosh, it's tough life for a plant. And we have in my soil where I am, it's clay soil, but um, so much limestone is in the
yeah,
ground. And so there's really not that much topsoil at all for things to grow, but they're still growing, they're still rooting. And
right.
um, it's fascinating to see how these things thrive when, you're like, I can't get my grass to grow, but that'll grow. It's fascinating.
Just don't grow grass.
I know. Exactly.
Oh, whatever really low growing ground cover does well there, grow that instead. I'm telling you, man,
Yes.
it drives me crazy. Like, I have to cut my grass, and we have 2 acres here, and I don't mow at all until the end of May.
Yeah.
I get really sad, and I cut it on the highest setting. And I go like, I make little meandering paths, trying to cut down as little as
Aw.
possible. You know,
Yeah.
I really just hate it. But if I could afford to like safe fill the grass and let the wild plants take over, and I'm trying. I'm always trying.
Yeah.
That's what I would do for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but all these things that you just mentioned are really good. And I think it's surprising to know how much of those plants are edible. It's not just the flower or the leaf. Like in
Yeah,
dandelion, the dandelion root
yeah,
um, is one one of the most medicinal parts of the plant.
yes,
Um, and I had
absolutely.
no idea, right? You think the root, like you would never do anything with the root,
Right.
um, but
Yeah,
and it's it's a little bit of a mind game to figure out, well, like, I'm eating, the root of something, or I don't know, with passion flower. Like, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, eat the flower, right? But then the leaf, like, really? I can eat the leaf? Like, and they
Yep.
have different properties, they do different things. Um,
Yep.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, in flour, all of the above ground parts are all a natural nervine sedative. Um, the flour itself just tastes better than the leaves. Um,
Yeah.
fun and more appealing, and I mean it's kind of like my tea turning blue. Like that feels
Yeah.
nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
the leaves are and the stems are just as medicinal as the flowers. Um,
Yeah.
and like the violets, the flowers are fun, but really the leaves after the flowers have already died off um, are much more medicinal and have a
Huh.
stronger content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um, and there's a lot of plants that it's the and that is the most powerful. And I struggle with some of them because I'm like, oh, what if I damage the plant? Like that
Yeah.
makes me, I don't
Yeah.
want to die.
Yeah.
So that's always a hard one.
Yeah.
But you just be careful.
Yeah.
Just be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's interesting to there's a lot of plants that like sassafras is a tree that is the basis for root beer. That's what they used to make root beer. And like you're not allowed to sell sassafras anymore because it's been deemed dangerous. But it's because people were making drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just neat. The more you learn about plants, the more like you get totally geeking out on all kinds of information, and then
Yeah.
you could share all sorts of things one moment with somebody, and then they ask you like a basic question, and you're like, oh well, I don't know. But I mean, there's over 300,000 medicinal plants on the
Yeah.
planet. So that's why instead of getting overwhelmed by all of that, work with what's right there in your kitchen. Work with
Yeah.
what's right there in your yard, and then as you learn more and you want something different, then do one or two things at a time. It's kind of like when we all started detoxing our houses and getting chemical cleaners and things. We was like, well, one thing at
Yeah.
a time. I remember everybody in homeschool groups, moms like just do one thing at a time, honey, one at a time.
Yep.
don't don't beat yourself up. It's the same thing, with herbalism and natural medicine. I would say if you can't do herbs and you can't make your own, and even if you couldn't afford to buy any, just start with incorporating probiotic foods in your diet and drinking more water. Those
Yeah.
things will
Drink
make
your
you
nettles.
drink your nettles. Oh my gosh, for sure. Drink your nettles. That's my favorite. I'm literally gonna remember that for the rest of my life. Are you drinking your
I bet.
nettles?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's precious. So, you can make so much with nettles, like nettle soup. I take nettles every day as like my multivitamin. Um,
Yeah.
but I drink them too.
Yeah.
I get a lot of nettles in my diet.
And it's pretty mild tasting.
Oh
Well, unless you make it really strong, but
yeah, yeah,
it's pretty mild. It'll mix well with other things.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have friends who like make nettle bread, like you like with like
Oh,
zucchini bread, but like
yeah.
sometimes savory and sometimes like sweet. You
Huh.
can do all sorts. Nettles are very versatile.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah,
I
you should
hadn't thought about that.
just Google a nettle bread recipe. Bunch of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to try that. I guess last question
Okay.
for me is um something I've been drawn to a lot recently, and I'm not quite sure why, and I haven't taken the time to look into it. I've been so drawn for a while now to rosemary.
Mm,
Um, I'm feeling like rosemary has something to teach me or do for me, and
yeah.
I just haven't taken the time to look into it. So tell me about rosemary. Rosemary is something everybody can grow. Some of my
Yeah.
neighbors have it as an ornamental in their lawn or in their
Mhm.
landscaping. And it's easy to grow. So this is something everybody can do
Yes,
and learn
I think
from.
that's one of the ones I didn't mention when we were talking about culinary. Rosemary is wonderful. I Rosemary is really great for your brain. It helps like cognitive function, and it is also really great for hair growth. Make like
Hmm.
hair oil, and it's easy and it's comes back and it smells good and it's good in your food and whether you're making tea or cooking with it or taking it as a tincture or all of the above. I don't ever get too much rosemary in your diet, because everything in our body requires our brain, and rosemary just helps our brain to do best. And it definitely has an affinity for the head because like I said, like it makes it helps your hair grow too. Definitely,
Yeah.
different herbs seem to, what's the word? Gravitate, I guess, maybe to different areas of the body. Like when
Sure.
you talk about like cramp bark, like cramp bark will absolutely help muscle cramps too, but it definitely has an affinity for that lower body, um, womb cramping. Um,
Yeah.
so similar idea is that certain herbs just seem to have an affinity for certain areas of the body,
Yeah.
even though they might help others. They just that's more where they tend to energetically head.
Yeah.
So rosemary is wonderful, and it just tastes good.
Yeah. Awesome. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today. We covered a lot of ground, and I hope listeners got some value, a lot of value, and maybe started thinking about things that they hadn't considered before. If people would like to follow you, connect with you, learn more about you, learn what you are providing, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Rooted in Love. It's rooted in love, rooted the letter N, and then love. And that's all my social media. I'm very old fashioned. Um, I am working on a website, um, but I don't want people to know it. I want them to be able to see all of what I offer, but I still have to email me and communicate with me directly. Because
Yeah.
I feel like something's missing otherwise, and
Yeah.
I want to I want to utilize today's avenue, but I don't want to lose that personal touch.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm working on it. And you can always email me at rooted in the letter N love herbs at gmail.com. And oh, and you can find my products. So there's a wellness center in Sparta, North Carolina, I believe, that carries some of my products. And I can't remember the name of her store now. That's terrible. Oh me. But you can find my products at the Sati Nukuchi Center. They have a special line of all Georgia native plant products, like only Georgia native plants.
Cool.
And Salutations LLC is a little boutique type store, also in Salty, Nukuchi, Georgia. And I'm at Top Notch Boutique in Cumming, Georgia, at the Cumming City Center. In Cleveland, you can find my products at Peace Mama Spa and at White County Family Chiropractic and at Granny B's thrift store. Let's see. Oh, at Big Canoe, I am at Feather and Stone Boutique. That may be everybody. I hope that's
All these
everybody.
places have such fun names.
I know, right? They really do. They
Yeah.
really do. And they're all like everything but the Sati Nikuchi Center is all small women-owned businesses. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really proud of them and being a part of, their stores and what they do. And yeah, very impressed by all of them.
Yeah. Love that. Love the symbiotic support there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, I will make sure to put all of your social media and some of the books that you referenced today. I'll put all of that in the show notes so people can um, have that handy and let us know if you had anything come up for you today from listening to us. Thanks for listening to The Young Granny Show. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with your fellow old souls. Until next time, keep embracing your inner granny.